In this lesson, we're going to look at creating mailboxes for our test users. And on my screen here, I've just got the Active Directory users and computers console open. And you can see in that Exchange users OU, I've got all those user accounts that were created by the PowerShell script. So I'm going to start creating mailboxes for these users, or to put it another way, I'm going to start mailbox enabling these users. But before I do that, I just want to sort them out into a couple of different organizational units. I'm just going to name those after some capital cities here in Australia. So we've got Brisbane, we'll do Sydney, and also Melbourne. So you can use any cities you like there, it doesn't really matter. We just want to break these up into roughly the same size groups. So I'll just grab the first sort of lot, put them in Brisbane. Grab some more, drag them into Sydney. See how we're going here. And we'll just put the rest of them in Melbourne. It's no big deal how many is in each one. Okay, so Brisbane's got some users, Sydney's got some users, Melbourne's got some users, and that's all sorted out. So now let's go to a web browser, and we'll open up the Exchange Admin Center and start looking at how to actually create or mailbox enable those users. Now I'm still logged onto my domain controller here because, of course, the Exchange the Exchange Admin Center is a web-based console in Exchange 2013. You can actually get to it from any server or workstation with a web browser. So here we are in the Exchange Admin Center in this recipient section under mailboxes. I've already created one mailbox, Paul Cunningham, which I created the mailbox and the user at basically the same time. So now let's go ahead and create another mailbox, and we'll do this for an existing user. And just by browsing here, we can see here's a list of all of the users there. So I'll just grab Alan Reed, and we can just hit save, and it's as simple as that. Now I didn't choose a mailbox database to put Alan Reed's mailbox on, and I don't have to because Exchange 2013 can automatically select an Exchange mailbox for us from a mailbox database to host the mailbox from all of the available databases within the site. So even though you could choose where to put your mailboxes, it could just as easily allow Exchange to make that decision for you. And I'd probably encourage you to actually consider doing that in your production environment. There's not many real reasons that you need to manually allocate specific databases to host specific groups of mailboxes. There are some valid reasons. You might want to put your VIP users on one particular database because that's the database that needs to be backed up or recovered faster than anybody else. You may put them onto different mailbox databases because of particular quotas, mailbox quotas. And as we'll demonstrate shortly, you may specify that certain mailbox databases should only be used to host, say for example, archive mailboxes and not regular user mailboxes. So in Alan's case, let's just see where he's ended up. We'll just expand this more options down here, and we can see that he's actually ended up on my archive database. Now I didn't really want him there. I had planned to use that database, as the name suggests, for archive mailboxes. But Exchange 2013 has automatically chosen that one and placed his mailbox on there. So we need to do two things here. We need to move him to a different database, and also make sure that Exchange doesn't select that mailbox database for future mailboxes that are being created or that are being migrated around. So let's start with moving his mailbox to a different database. I'll just click on migration, and we're going to choose to move to a different database. Select Alan from that list. We need to give the migration batch a name. I'm just going to call it Alan Reed because he's the only one I'm moving at the moment. You get the option to move the primary mailbox and the archive mailbox if one exists. Now, one does not exist in this case, but if you wanted to, you could move the primary mailbox only or move the archive mailbox only. And in the case where you're trying to move both at once, you get to choose different databases if you need to locate those on. So we're just moving the primary mailbox. I will choose primary mailbox only. And I'll browse for another database. Let's just put him on database 1. Now down here in the more options, you can see there is a bad item limit. This is something that you can play around with if you're having trouble moving mailboxes that contain a lot of corrupt items. So Exchange will stop a mailbox move if there are too many corrupt items within the mailbox. And what you can do is you can set a higher bad item limit here, something really high like 50, 100, and basically instruct Exchange to accept that more corrupt items can be discarded and that's acceptable to you for the move to continue. This is just a new mailbox. I don't imagine it's going to have any bad items in it at all, so I don't really need to set any bad item limit here. We do get the option to send a report to a recipient afterwards. And what do we want to do with this migration batch? Well, I want to start the migration batch immediately, and I want it to automatically complete. I don't want it to suspend when it is near completion. I actually want it to just go through and complete all the way. So you've got a lot of different options and flexibility there, and we'll explore some of those options later on in other lessons as well. So here we can see that move request, its current status, and given that it's not a very big mailbox, I expect this actually to complete fairly quickly. Okay, so after a few minutes, that migration batch has completed, and we can just get rid of that migration batch now. I'm not really interested in diving into the stats of that at the moment, so just delete it, that's fine. So now we just want to make sure that that archive database is excluded from any future automatic mailbox distribution decisions that Exchange makes for us. Now to do that, I'm going to jump over to my Exchange server because that's where I've got the Exchange management shell installed, because we do need to do this in PowerShell. So I'll run get mailbox database, and we can see that I've got the 3 mailbox databases there, DB1, DB2, and archive DB. So DB1, DB2 are the ones that I want my user mailboxes to go to, and archive DB is the one that I want to be excluded from that automatic distribution. So all I need to do is run set mailbox database and archive DB as the name of the database that we're modifying, and then is excluded from provisioning, and we just set that to true. And it's as simple as that. So let's take a look at what my current distribution of mailboxes is for my organization. Now I've only got a couple of mailboxes, so we're not going to see any big numbers here, but I'll just run get mailbox, and I'll do result size of unlimited just for the heck of it. And what we want to do is group those objects by the property database, and then just show the name and account, and we'll just see what we get from that. Okay, so on DB1 we've got 4 mailboxes, and on DB2 there's nothing. It's not showing up in that list at all. And I'll just format that a little bit differently just to make it easier to read. So DB1, 4 mailboxes. DB2 is hasn't got any. It doesn't appear here. So now let's say we want to create mailboxes for all of our other test users. Now I could go back into the Exchange Administration console and I could go through that wizard again. But we can also do that perhaps more efficiently here in PowerShell. So let's say I already know that I've got a user named Alex Hain. We can see him here. So get user Alex Hain returns that user from Active Directory. And I want to mailbox enable that user. Well, all I need to do is pipe that into enable mailbox. And that's done. And we've created a mailbox for Alex. Simple as that. Let's have another look at that mailbox distribution. We can see that Exchange has placed this one on database 2. So we've got 4 mailboxes on database 1, 2 mailboxes on database 2. What about creating mailboxes for multiple user accounts all in one hit? Well, let's have a look at get user organizational unit Brisbane. We can see that all of the users in that Brisbane OU are returned here in my PowerShell window. 2 of them are already mailbox enabled, the rest of them are not. So all we need to do again is pipe that to enable mailbox. And we will see an error here because of the 2 existing mailbox users. So obviously it can't enable them again when they're already enabled. But all of the rest of them are enabled just fine. So let's have another look at that distribution of mailboxes. You can see that they're almost exactly evenly distributed across our 2 databases, but none of them were placed on the archive database that was excluded from provisioning. So now let's just repeat that for my Sydney and Melbourne OUs. And one more time, let's just have a look at that distribution of mailboxes across databases. It just takes a little longer to run this time, obviously, because there are more mailboxes. You can see that once again, they're almost exactly distributed evenly across those 2 databases. Now this process really only takes into account the number of mailboxes residing on those databases. It's not going to make decisions based on things like the amount of data or the load that those databases are exhibiting at the time. But under most real-world situations, if you're bulk creating mailboxes or just creating them a few at a time, maybe a few new users are showing up in your organization each week, letting Exchange just decide where to place those mailboxes certainly takes a lot of administrative decisions off the plate of your help desk or your Exchange administrators, and just really simplifies that mailbox provisioning process for you.